Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Balaji Srinivasan. I'm a professor of electrical engineering at IIT Madras. I'm also the faculty coordinator for internships in the online BSc program, which is one of the world's first online degree program in data sciences and programming. And there's an enrollment to date of more than 10,000 students. At the online degree program, we have been trying to understand the scope and opportunities for our students. And as part of such activities, we are reaching out to industry leaders and professionals so that we can understand their perspectives and take that into account while moving forward. We are indeed fortunate to be with one of those industry leaders today, someone who's ranked among India's top 10 data scientists by Analytics India magazine, someone who's driven by the vision of making his company the most advanced analytic and AI consulting firm in the world, someone who has worked with clients at Fortune 100 firms and startups alike to enable scientific decision-making in their organizations and helped design analytics roadmaps as well as architected numerous data science solution frameworks. And that person is none other than Mr. Pradeep Gulipalli, who's a co-founder of Tiger Analytics and heads his India office. Pradeep actually was one of our own alumnus at IIT Madras. He has a BTech from IIT Madras and then a master's from UT Austin. Good evening, Pradeep. Welcome to our interaction session. Happy to host you here.
Very glad to be here, Balaji, and thanks for some of the kind and flattering words. Glad to meet all of you virtually in this session.
Great. So, we actually opened up the session to all of our students and asked them, what would be that one question that you ask Pradeep, and there have been lots of questions over the past few days streaming in, and we have tried to sort of consolidate them into different phases of your career. And so let's get started by talking about your time at IIT Madras. So what are your favorite memories during that time, and what exactly did you do at IIT Madras?
It's, I think anyone who spent time on the campus realizes that that's just spending time with friends there and the classes and all. It's a very, very special experience, right? For someone like me who came from a very small town, India, studied in small schools, IIT for me was like, hey, just a window to the world of opportunities, right? So it was a thing. What is all this even possible, right? You get that wow when you come here, and then that opens up your eyes to a lot of things. The kind of faculty you have, the quality of student interactions, it is something out of the world, something that I could have never imagined when I stepped into the campus. 4 years, a lot of fun. There was a lot of academic rigor, in parallel, a lot of hostel activities, all of that. So, I could, in a moment, I would be any day say, okay, to go back and relive those days.
Don't we all want to do that, right? Quite interestingly, you are a data scientist, one of the foremost data scientists, around in India and perhaps in the world as well. But you started your career in civil engineering. So can you tell a little bit about that? What were your favorite subjects back then? Would you have ever imagined that you will be where you are from that time?
Yeah, and I did study civil engineering. It's when you are in the middle of the thick of things, all of those engineering topics it's really hard for you to project yourself, where you'll be 20 years out. No, yeah, it's been 20 years since I've been in the campus. But looking back, you can connect a lot of the dots, right? Um, I clearly remember some of the classes, right? It has so much impact on you. One of the first classes, I think it was year one itself, was advanced structural analysis. This was Professor Devdas Menon. I think he's still
Right.
teaching.
Yes.
He was teaching a structural analysis. Class one, he tells us, look, this is not about structural analysis. This is about analytical thinking. Right? How do you break down the problem to the foundations and solve something like this? That was like, no one put it that way till then, whether it is in my entire schooling or the other courses I had taken at IITM. And that one phrase, every time I would repeat in my head in every single course, saying, hey, what is the thought process here? What's the analytical thinking or the grounds up thinking that we are learning here? And every course would have that, right? Whether or not the professor would explicitly say it or not. But that was something which changed my view towards various courses we went through. I can clearly remember design of concrete structures, Professor P. K. Arvindan, design of steel structures, Professor V. Kalyan Raman. Phenomenal, right? There were like great professors who would break down such complex problems. Imagine designing these huge structures. They would break down to first principles and then teach us how to build it up in your mind. And now you think it's, if not the same principles, but the confidence you carry with you to say, I can break down a complex problem into something small and build, right? So these were great examples. And one more example I would like to quote here, right? This was one of my favorite subjects again, fluid mechanics. This is Professor B.S. Murthy. I think he's also there now.
Mm-hmm.
Great teacher, the way he would explain things with such lucidity. One of my big takeaways from that course was all the foundational equations were great, right? Whether it was related to buoyancy or Bernoulli's equations, Euler's equations, all of this great, right? Build grounds up. But he also taught us about how do you build empirical equations, right? How do you measure data in the lab and then build equations that represent real life phenomena? This is what ML today is all about, right? And so ML, it's not something new. It's been there for ages. People have been doing it in different, in a different shape. It's own old wine in a new bottle now. But that was phenomenal. That people said, like, wow, we don't, even though we don't know the foundations of how this is a phenomena, but we could still build equations to represent it. Some of these were really eye-opening for someone at that age.
Sure, absolutely. I can understand. So you must have been a fairly studious person to be remembering that much detail after 20 years as well. So I'm sure the professors were very good also. And so that's great. But what are the other lessons that you learned? So this is about, in general, design thinking you're talking about. But what are the other key lessons that the student life taught you, which has been useful in your career?
Yeah, it's true. One of the things everyone who studies at this institute would realize pretty quickly is how capable other students are, right? How capable your peers are. A lot of us, when coming into the equation, to the institution, we've done well at school and generally have been good students. And then you come in and you realize that this is very different peer group, right? They're very capable people, like very brilliant people out there. And then when you take that along, one thing you internalize is you might know certain things, but there are so many people out there who can do other things much, much better than you. That's a very big learning because now whenever faced with any problem, I'm 100% confident that maybe I can take it to a 3 on a 10, 4 on a 10, but there's someone who is a 9 on a 10. And I just need to figure out who that person is, convince them, come, let's work together and we'll create magic, right?
So like they say, if you are the smartest person in the room, get out of the room, right? Or in the wrong room. So you always look for people who can do better. So that's a great thing to have, going forward. And then, of course, you went on to go out, do higher studies abroad. So what really prompted that? What was your motivation at that time when you went for the
Yeah,
US?
it was a bit of an extension of my undergrad, the way I thought about it. If you put yourself in the shoes of someone like me who grew up in one of the most remote and say backward districts of the country, and hey, IIT was such an eye opener into this whole new world, and that was just going for graduate studies abroad would open up my not just my worldview so much more, and it was too good an opportunity to pass upon. Right, I could still go further. My the thirst for technology and also exposure to something beyond that as well. It's a great call in retrospect to take that leap at that time.
Mm-hmm. And how did you get to? If I remember right, that was something about in UT Austin, something related to environmental engineering and so on. How did it transform to a data sciences or data analytics sort of viewpoint?
Yeah, it was a very fascinating program. So my graduate studies and research were so I used to work one with the civil engineering department, with the Department of Economics, some aspects of B school, and then urban planning. So what we used to do was we used to build mathematical models and simulations of cities, so that when any policy decisions need to be made, they can be simulated, right? Whether it be about investment in certain kinds of infrastructure, or investments in housing or commerce, transportation. What would be the economic impact on people? So this is how I started, and then my first job was an extension of this. We said, hey, can we build mathematical models and simulations of companies and marketplaces, products, prices, consumers? It was in many ways say, I've done this in real life in a very unstructured situation like a city. Can I do it in a different situation, which is in a business context? So it was a reasonable leap from there, and that is how I started. So we didn't call it data sciences when I first started doing it. But that was how I got into the space.
Right, that's great. So that's the beauty of I think data sciences in general, is that it's so pervasive. It's something that's required in so many different fields, and it's so natural also that you need to be collecting data and analyzing them and so on, and so that's actually a fairly good entry point there. But in terms of how it's impacting various sectors, how do you see the present version of data science, how it's impacting different business sectors?
Tremendous, right? The kind of impact this space is having. People call it various names, right? Don't get too, in general, you'll hear a lot of things in the industry, many times misrepresented, but don't get bogged down by what it's called. But if you look at the end impact, right, whatever technology you use, whether you call it analytics, AI, ML, whichever, right, a whole host of things, but look at the end of the day, what you're doing, there is data and you're trying to drive some impact using that. If you keep it simple this way, you'll see that there is every single industry today is benefiting from this. I'm sure we see a lot of that in our labs in the campus. But even in the business world, you'll see that if every function, right? You start with whatever be the industry, you start with, hey, first thing, how do I get the word out? How do I start reaching out to potential customers, which is marketing? How do I optimize my marketing spend to what channel should I use? All this heavily driven by data science and analytics today. Then let's say you have a customer in. How do I make the customer's experience great? How do the whole life cycle of the customer? How do I use data to keep it top notch? Right? Heavily driven by data science. You look at operations side of any organization. Operations could be the manufacturing side of things, logistics side of things, the supply chain aspect. All of these, completely data driven today. If you are an organization who is building a product, whether it's say a technology software product or a physical product, it can be in manufacturing or the technology product in the feature selection, all of that. A lot of data driven thinking, right? In financial institutions, they talk about risk of certain investments or the calls they're taking, all algorithmically driven today. So across the board, across industries, it's being used. You'll see a greater incidence in areas where data is easily generated. For example, we say any internet-based companies, the e-commerce or the other e-companies or the tech companies, you will see more prevalence. But even otherwise, we are working with steel manufacturers who are using this to such a large scale that all of their say the maintenance of their entire manufacturing facility is driven by data science, right? And we build such platforms. So if a steel manufacturer is able to do that, you can think of possibilities for anyone else.
Yes, absolutely. So that gives an idea of how wide the scope is. I'm actually reminded of this, this Gartner, curve. What you look at as a hype cycle, the Gartner hype cycle, right? So whenever one of these things come up, we actually say this is the world's best thing and this is going to change the world, and it was like a computer at some point, the mobile phone at some point, the internet economy at some point, and so on. And recently there's been a lot of interest in machine learning and so on. So it's very important, even as we think about all the possibilities, we also think about the limitations as far as any of these things that are coming through. So from your perspective, what should people watch out for when they're looking at data sciences? And one side you say it's going to solve all of the world's problems, but then the other side, what do we have to watch out for?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. So there's always this hype. It's good never to get carried away by a lot of this. So by the way, things that you mentioned, like computers and mobile phones, they did change the world.
Well, they did. But at some point, they were like, you have this, and then all the world's problems will go away, and we're still facing some of those problems.
So for all aspiring professionals in this space, or people who are in this space, thing to remember is, look, you are solving a problem, and you are not solving a data science problem, right? There's a huge difference between the two. To solve a problem, you need a variety of equipment. And data science is one of the instruments that you have, which is very powerful. But that itself will not solve the problem for you. You need several things to come together. And if you are the core problem solver, you need to know how will all these things come together? How will they get used? What is the problem I'm solving? Is there value in solving the problem? Those are more important things for you to think about. Today there is you have this very powerful instrument called data science, which you can use. Tomorrow, maybe it'll be something else, right? Or it gets so automated that right, it's not as complicated to use. So if you can keep the problem-solving mindset in general and keep a view out for what are the various things that need to come together to solve the problem, we'll view everything with a little bit more of humility and not get carried away by all the craze.
Right. That's true. That's always important to have that perspective. A slightly more personal question, because this is something I think a lot of people go out and try to get into places which maximizes their potential. And the USA is certainly one of those places that I think your generation, and maybe I'm not too far out, but we all went out and we experienced that. But you made that important decision to come back to India, right? So is that a personal decision or a strategic decision? What was going through your mind in terms of actually coming back to India?
Yeah, I think I'm sure you'll have your own story, Professor Balaji, on this. For me, it was, I'll pose the question differently. For me, it was always like, hey, this is the default, right? And then the question was, should I build a life in the USA or elsewhere, or continue what I've been doing? I took a detour, but it's very personal choice. What works for one might not work for the other. At the end of the day, we all need to live with our choices and
right.
not hold no regrets, kind of a thing, right? So it was just a personal call. Came back there, right? And I'm glad that it is pretty early in my career. So I'm looking back at it, I'm very, very happy I made that call.
So you were already sort of programmed to do that, and you were looking for an opportunity to come back, and that I guess was one of the major motivations. But talking about programming, our program, for example, this online BSc degree program is on data sciences and programming. So we talked a lot about data sciences and its importance. So can you tell a little bit about the programming side of things, and how did you actually deal with that? So were you sort of educated, or you took courses in programming and developed that aspect, or how did that work for you?
Yeah, no. So that was one of the things I was very pleasantly surprised. The way you created the course, data science and programming, because many times when you start building things, the programming becomes more important than the data science. Mm-hmm. The data science might be a much smaller piece when you're solving the larger puzzle, the larger puzzle. And programming becomes the tool with which you integrate all of this, you orchestrate all of this, right? So I was very happy that the focus that this program brought in to programming. Personally, I was not a natural programmer. The CS 101s in the first year didn't go too well. But where I picked up a lot of it during my graduate studies, the master studies, where you had to. There's no other way to do things, right? Theory was only so much, but then when you start to you have to start simulating things. You have to code up all that math. You need to do it yourself. So a lot of self-learning is what I did. With the help of some good friends who would mentor me. But a great thing now is, even someone who is not a natural programmer or haven't learned programming in their early days, there's a lot of good resources online. Even if someone in whatever courses they're pursuing, they feel that, hey, that aspect is not covered as grounds up as that's required for them, you'll find a lot of foundational programming courses online. So that's super critical for a career in this space. If I were to rank order the importance of various things, even if you come out of a program like a data science program with a median understanding of data science, but you come out with strong programming way of thinking and ability to implement things, that will be a big win.
Yeah.
So definitely not something not to be ignored.
That's a very good message for our students, because I'm sure it is a fairly rigorous program, the online degree program itself, and while they are going through this, they are doing a diploma in data science, a diploma in programming, and they are almost like choosing between the two because they cannot run both of them together, and they're making choices. And your message is, do both, find a way to balance both and move forward, because one without the other is probably not going to make as much sense, right? So that's great. Now, coming back to our narrative about returning to India, you not only returned to India with all the uncertainties that's always associated with coming back from USA to an Indian setup, but also you decided to have this other uncertainty about a startup company. Please tell us how that happened, and what was your thinking at that time?
Yeah. So I think both these are not two related topics. Returning was one part, but I was a practitioner myself. The first 7 years of my career, when I used to work at a consulting firm, and consulting at that time was there would be this management consultants, some fancy MBA folks, and they'd go with the strategy frameworks and how to handle certain things, how to enter new markets and all of that. And I would be, many times part of the quant or the tech team, and we were backing up a lot of these decisions using models and the quant side of things. Right? So during this journey, one thing I realized was when businesses were looking at problems that can be solved using data, they were only tackling some of it. There's a whole host of things they could do that they were not even touching. Probably it's because it was still nascent at that time. Organizations were still unsure about what value analytics or data sciences would bring. It was at that stage, but what was clear to me sitting in the ground was, working in the trenches, was it is whatever problems we are solving, this is adding so much value. It's so much more to be done. There's so much opportunity. And no, it's there for someone to come and make an impact, right? All these things are going on in my mind, and then the trigger came when I met the other founder, Mahesh, and then he was a professor, and he was doing his research, and to his consulting engagements, he was also looking, doing the same, coming to the same conclusion. And then once we got together, then there's no turning back, right? It's been a great journey so far.
Right, that's great. How did you come up with this name? It's a very unique name, Tiger Analytics. What prompted you the name, and what is unique about Tiger Analytics?
I hope you like the name.
Yeah, of course. It says "go get it" sort of attitude.
So there's some bit of analytics to the name Tiger Analytics as well. So when naming anything, there's several candidate names when you're venturing out on something like this, and we thought of a few other names, and then when we started to do some A/B testing on those names, saying that, hey, are you able to, what do you relate this to, or are you able to even recollect this name after a week? Kind of a thing. Some of our early names that we thought about were no good. Then somewhere along the way, Tiger happened, and then this was something people related, people remembered, and then it had certainly a good Indian ring to it as well. So
yes,
we left it at that.
And what is unique about the way you guys go about things? I suppose there are a lot of analytics firms since you started, and there have been analytics firms before you started also. So what makes your company different?
Yeah. So this is the way we build the company. It has a very deep tech DNA. Right? Just owing to the founding team itself, like I said, I've been always a very core tech person, and who's the other founder, who is also a CEO now. He's you know, IIT, MIT, PhD, and was a professor. So we brought in that importance of tech. That this needs to be the foundation. Everything else, will stem from here. But this is what we'll need to solve a lot of the core problems. So what that it is, we started when we build out teams. There's a lot of focus on building really good the technology teams, and technology thus became a part of every single person who is in the organization, right? So whether it could be someone who might be who's not let's say who doesn't naturally come from a technology background, but still they learn, pick up enough technology so as to be able to orchestrate or solve these problems. So that's a depth in general, which allows us to solve a lot of problems grounds up, right? Go deep. This I don't see often many times, right? So many times it could be that I could just stitch together some of these things available and then piece together a solution. That's just at a surface level. But for us, it's always been, you could still do that, but you need to understand things grounds up, right? So that brought us, once you build that kind of a team, you tend to attract more such people,
Right.
people who think that way. So that happened. So what this allowed us to do is solve kinds of problems which are usually more complex, right? And then we started to become partners of choice for several large organizations who wanted someone who can step up to solve complex problems when the need arises. Now, all problems are not complex. But a lot of them could be the median in your normal distribution. But when an organization looks for a partner like us or anyone to work with them, they say, and most of the time my problems are median, but there will be those occasions where I'll be above that at 90-95 percentile, that complexity, and I want someone who will be able to step up to that when needed. So that's something which we did quite well, and we continue to do quite well. So that's something a bit unique about how we build and the culture that got built over time.
Excellent. And of course, you have several Fortune 500 companies among your the list of customers that you have. So how do you become a trusted partner? I mean, this is data analytics, right? So they're trusting you with a lot of critical data, and that trust doesn't happen overnight. So you have to that's something that you have to earn over a period of time. So how difficult was that to get into that curve, the growth curve, during the initial days when you're just taking off?
Yeah, it is. We all take baby steps, right? So first, our first clients were a few startups, and then mid-sized companies, and then large enterprises. All of that. But a few things that served us very well along this journey was realization that, look, when someone is entrusting you with a problem statement to solve it, what they're looking for is when you solve this problem, it's going to go and have a certain impact. Can you deliver that impact? That is what they're looking for, and not really about, hey, have you used the latest of tools and technologies or what I think is cool? It doesn't really matter. So if you focus on value, you will several times realize that things are latest and cutting edge for a reason, right? And you'll many times realize that, hey, bringing in these will enhance value, but don't let the coolness of the technology take away from the end value that you're delivering, or the end problem that you're solving. Once we start behaving this way, right, then we're aligned. They engage us because no, we bring in this expertise. Clients engage us because we bring in data science expertise. But when we talk the language of what problem are we solving? What will this do? Why do we need to solve? We talk that language, right? And then problems get solved. Actually, right? It doesn't become like, hey, we have built something nice technically, but it's not getting used, right? We minimize those situations by this. This mindset has helped us tremendously in building these relationships.
Right. And the security aspect of it, how much do you worry about that? How much do you actually imbibe that among your employers? How do you make sure that whatever data they are dealing with, they are handling it in a very confidential manner?
Yeah, these are. I think some of these are generally there are security standards which have come up in the world. Many of these we don't need to reinvent ourselves. No, because we are. So think of it as the data analytics firms are not the only people who are handling data. There are a whole host of players through whom data transactions happen. And there are very standard, the gold standard protocols that have been established worldwide for these kind of transactions. So it is for us to be very well aware of that and execute them well, like in terms of, hey, what does data cannot leave certain things? What should be the security protocols there? Certain kinds of data can never be published. It needs to be masked. Certain personal identification should never even exist in our systems. Right? It should be scrambled before it goes to a certain thing. Right? One individual shouldn't be able to piece together everything. It needs to be distributed. These are best practices that anyone working in this space would know. It's just staying true to that and ensuring we follow all of that.
Right. So if somebody wanted to know what are you working on now? So I'll probably rephrase that question a little bit, saying that what do you aspire to be? Where is this all going? What do you see as the future?
Yeah. So the biggest thing on our mind right now is scaling the impact of AI and analytics. Right? This space. What does this mean? Right? It is, let's say, you're building something. Let's say you're building a small, like a drone grounds up. You have a great, it's like you build that model, great, it's flying and you're able to control it and all that. This is a phase that has already happened. Now, if you were to say you have to put 1 million drones in the hands of 1 million people to do a lot of things outside, a whole host of other things come up, which are much, much more complicated than possibly the building of the drone itself, right? So something like, how do we orchestrate? How do we manage all of this? What happens if the drone crashes into something? Who is responsible for it? Who's underwriting the risks? Can I take a drone to a court? What should be the it's a traffic rules and regulations? A whole host of things need to come together. When any new technology has to take on something at scale. AI analytics is at that phase. A value at a certain level is proven beyond doubt that it works, it delivers value. But now you need to operate it at scale. So think of an organization, all of you would be familiar with, say a data science or an ML model. Now, solve a specific problem, maybe I need a dozen ML models, I'll stitch them together to do that. But now, if there are millions of ML models floating around in my organization, that's so unwieldy. And this is only one dimension of the problem where I'm just talking about scale of ML models. But this scaling needs more structure, and then a lot of things beyond technology need to come together. That's going to be the next frontier for this industry in general that we need to solve to say that, hey, if an organization needs to be completely analytics driven, data driven, a lot of things need to come together. What are those? What will be the best practices? It'll need to be, there'll be a lot of platforms and data products, talking to each other, interacting with each other. How will all of that come together? That's the next frontier.
Oh, excellent, excellent. Nice to hear that. Of course, all our viewers, especially all the students in the program, they would like to know. So, how are they positioned to handle some of the challenges that you mentioned going forward? How does this data sciences degree, how is this preparing them to deal with some of those challenges? Your general thoughts on the program itself, the online degree program itself.
No, absolutely. So something when this program was first being conceived, I had the opportunity to look at the curriculum even at that time. And one thought that crossed my mind was, say, if we at Tiger had to design a curriculum for people entering early career folks in the company, and if we had the luxury of time, this is as good as it gets. Right? It's a phenomenal program in terms of the kind of content that is coming together. Right. So I see there are the statistical and math foundations which are there. Right. The programming foundations, intro to Python. I remember that data structures, algorithms was there. The database management systems. You covered application development. Very unique to typical data science programs, but much needed for if you think of full stack data scientists today. ML is being covered, ML and deep learning as an extension covered. You're talking about software engineering, again, quite unique to what I've seen in other programs. And we see the need that data scientists need to have that software engineering mindset, especially when I'm thinking about talking about scaling, right? So that needs to come in. I see design thinking in the curriculum. Like, wow, this is everything that you need is there. So there's an opportunity. These are all foundations, right? And you might not become an expert in any of these at the end of the course, but this is a solid foundation to build a career. There are multiple opportunities that stem out of it. Some of you, you could choose to go the route of staying more closer to business and business problem solving, right? So you might start off careers as business analysts, who are half thinking about business, half about data analysis. Some of you could become a core data scientists whose expertise is analyzing data, building those models and simulations. Some could branch off, not branch off, take up data engineering, which is building all these data foundations and through only after which we talk the rest of the thing.
Right. Yes.
Right. Large scale ML ML engineering and building those ML systems. That's taking off as almost a separate area itself. So all these options open up for someone who's building foundations across the board. And these are things you can start at some point and you can always branch off into others. But as you go in your careers, these are some of the choices you'll need to make, saying, hey, what really works for me? But at least all of these are open options at the moment.
Yes, that's great, and it's very nice that you think so highly of the program. I'm sure it's so much more reassuring for all our students that somebody, a top industry leader, is certifying the contents of the program. And there is, of course, things that go beyond the contents, right? So there is only so much that can be learned through these courses. Any suggestions to our students as to how to prepare themselves a little more for the industry? Of course, the theoretical aspects that they can learn from the program, but in terms of making themselves more employable, what do you think are the skill sets that they need to develop?
So it would be, because this is still a very technical degree, the way it's structured, I would suggest that you might be learning some of these as independent courses. Right? Now, if you are able to work on problem statements, and there are ample of them online, where you're able to bring all of these together to build a solution, right? A solution, or it could be a demo of a problem statement you have in mind, for which, yeah, you will need to do the statistical analysis, build those models, build the pipeline. There's a database sitting behind, there's a front end. No, you've done the whole thing. Something like that, if you do, then it'll give you confidence that, hey, you're able to put together everything that you have learned. And also, someone in the industry, when they're looking at you, they say, hey, here is someone who appreciates end to end, right? They can be someone who can build the whole thing, or at least, even if they are focused on one aspect, they will empathize with the people who are building the other side of the system, right? Right. So if you're able to pick up some problems like this, and there are enough competitions and these springboards across the world, online, or I'm sure your professors will be able to help you with some of those as well.
Sure.
But if you're able to do some of those, it'll teach you how to stitch together everything and not look at each of these as silos.
Right. And the key message I think you're also trying to convey is not everything can be done by one person. You need to get a team of people together and figure out how to work with each other, how to take complementary skills and try to do 2 + 2 = 8, some force multiplier and those sort of things, right? That teamwork is very important.
Very important. And for the teamwork to happen, if there are two specialists coming together, you might be one of them, but you need to understand what the other specialist is doing, which is where these foundations will help. Whichever direction you choose, that will create that multiplier effect. If each one of you doesn't know what the other is doing, then again, that's also a problem. But yeah, I completely agree with you, Balaji.
Right, great. There's something that people are always wondering about. So what's actually going to get them jobs? And I think before the jobs, what we are trying to also prepare them for this is internships. So my job is actually I'm the faculty coordinator for internships. So how do you see this aspect in terms of hiring people? How much of a believer are you in terms of giving internships and potentially converting that to a placement offer at some point later?
Yeah, and this is a very unique program, right, for us to think. Usually what happens is when we deal with or engage with students who are not from a core data science background, but they've been studying something adjacent, right? It might be an engineering discipline. It's very hard for them to do something meaningful in 2 to 3 months. Just so think of it, you are spending at least a couple of years or more learning all of this, and there's someone coming in without understanding of this. It's very hard for them to do something meaningful. In our context, it takes them about 6 to 9 months to come to a certain stage where they're able to start to stitch together solutions. So a 2-month internship is not productive for anyone. But for a program like this, if there's someone who's gone through this seriously, we know that, hey, you already know all these foundations, right? You can hit the ground running. You can jump into some real life problems and all of that. So for something like this, we'll be very happy to explore that option. Personally, from a Tiger Analytics perspective, I can definitely say that people graduating from this course will be glad to talk more about future employment opportunities, internship opportunities, all of that. Like I said, I'm a big believer in the course content. So always welcome these discussions.
Excellent to hear that. And I think one of the key messages that you are giving is, please plan for a longer internship, not just some quick thing, just for the namesake. Don't do something, but just be really involved in taking that up. And that's actually a very good point from our perspective also, because we provide that flexibility in the program that they can take some time off, do something, and then come back to the program, take courses at their own pace. And we are, of course, advising them to at least get to the diploma point, and then you consider internships, and then you can come back to the advanced degree level and complete your course. So that's very nice to hear. Now, we're coming to the last section. I think it's already been 50 minutes. I didn't realize. So it's been great talking to you. But just a little more in terms of the potential career paths for the students. You already mentioned that there is a lot of things in data engineering and the analytics and so on. So, but in terms of jobs is one perspective. What else can they possibly do? I suppose higher studies and things like that is also possible.
Research today, a lot of the whole ML and AI is opening up windows that earlier would not have been possible in research. Now there's so many stories of breakthroughs in medicine, especially, and I'm sure that's the case in every discipline, that it's becoming a very strong weapon of choice, if you will. So research careers are always possible. Your higher education and we're getting into research. That's a thing that exists. If there are some of you who are more entrepreneurs at heart, there are so many problems that need to be solved today. You take a walk in general, keeping your eyes open for what are the problems and where can some of this new age technologies like data science, or AI related to vision, speech, those, where can they add value? You'll be able to quickly come up with a dozen of these. Now, are those viable or not as a business model? Those are other questions. But what I'm saying is that there's so many problems that are waiting to be solved. If some of you are looking to take that entrepreneurial plunge, then that's an option also available.
That's right. Yeah, that's something we wanted to hear from you. So if somebody wants, so there are, of course, these three major options that people are considering, right? Taking up a job in an established company, becoming an entrepreneur, starting their own company, and then, of course, saying that I want to learn a little more of this, so I want to do an advanced degree in this, and so on. But coming to the entrepreneurship part, if somebody wants to be an entrepreneur, just beyond this degree program itself, what should they watch out for? So one of the things, for example, fundraising for your activities and all that, how difficult was that for you, and what are your thoughts on that for budding entrepreneurs?
For us, we never raised funds. We're fully bootstrapped, so we never had to get an investor on board. We were able to manage the finances, etc., so that we could grow. So there's less of a. We were lucky enough not to. That didn't become a limiting factor. But then these are all things that that you said that will be required in that journey. But before that, those are all secondary. Those are all logistics of the journey. First of all, at least as a starting point, you need to have what problem are you trying to solve, and is there value in solving the problem? And if only you're the only person thinking about that, then it doesn't really matter much. There should be someone who is saying, look, I'll pay you to solve the problem. Then it means, yes, this is a real problem. Right? So that something like that, you need to start thinking along those lines to take a leap, right? At least to be sure that that's a problem worth solving. And a lot of these, right, whether we're talking about higher studies or working somewhere on, these are not mutually exclusive, right? It can. Sometimes it can happen in parallel. One thing can lead to the other. All of these. So don't look at it as an either or, obviously, and take the next logical step. again, I think some of you are pretty early career, some of you are professionals who've been working for a while and taking this. So different life stages might have different points of view. But yeah, entrepreneurship can be, it's a little bit of a, it can be a bit of a lonely journey. Well, you're the only one responsible to take some of those high stakes decisions and no one to bank on. So just, if you're prepared for that journey, then it can be quite rewarding.
Right. And I suppose you mentioned previously about participating in competitions and all of that. And if you have already developed certain ideas and you find that they are being very successful in solving bigger problems, maybe that will be the seed for entrepreneurship.
Yeah, it's a seed, more than a seed. It gives one the confidence to say, look, I can go, I've solved this. Tomorrow, if there is something else, now I can do that too. It helps a lot. You get exposed to other things. You get exposed to people who could come build something together with you. You form that connects. So keep your eyes out. Keep open for these things.
Oh, great, great. So yes, we have talked about a lot of stuff, starting from your early days on to your time with the US and the higher studies, and then coming back and starting the company and going through this journey and all of that. So it's been great listening to all those thoughts. Any parting thoughts? Any the dreaded A word, the advice that you want to give to the next generation?
I wouldn't. Maybe I'll not take this at a very philosophical level, but keeping it very focused to this group. Something, if we have to take off that you can implement immediately. It's a recap of some of the things that we spoke about. Very tactical advice, but don't ignore programming. It can open up a lot of opportunities for you. If that's one very tactical advice I would give you regarding this journey you're going through. The course, the way it's been designed, there's a lot of very good content being covered. You talk to professionals today, they'll jump on something like this. It's just that they don't have the time, and you've already taken that leap. So make the best use of it. This is like the best content one can stitch together in this. So make full use of this time. That when you come out of this, you shouldn't need another refresher or another training. This, right? You come out of it really solid out of this. That's almost saying, hey, make very, very good use of the time you are spending in this. I'm not going to give more higher level gyan other than this, keeping it very realistic for now.
So excellent. Thank you so much, Pradeep. It's been great interacting with you. I've personally learned a lot through this interaction. I'm sure my students have learned a lot as well, and hopefully that will prepare them a little better in their journey in data sciences and programming as well. So thank you once again for taking time off your busy schedule to talk to us, and thanks. All the best.
My pleasure. Thanks for hosting me, and I wish everyone all the success in their objectives, their goals.
Great.
Thank you.